And welcome back to the second edition. If you're joining us in Laredo, actually it's the second week because we do it in 30-minute segments. But if you're here in Corpus Christi or San Antonio or on YouTube, welcome back. I'd like to take an opportunity to thank our sponsors, the Rhodes Vela Law Firm, Phil Vela and Tom Rhodes, excellent attorneys out there in San Antonio, Houston, and here in Corpus. And let's not forget my good friend, Impact Credit Group USA's Tommy Holbein, helping out people, especially now with the economic crisis going on, with the home mortgage crisis, with everything going on. Your credit and your rating matter. So contact Tommy Holbein at impactcreditgroupusa.com. I'd also like to thank all of our other sponsors, Vasquez Flores Home Health. That's 361-881-9922. Now, if you're just joining us, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Judge Jose Longoria, the 214th District Court Judge for the last 8 years.
Joe, thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate the invitation to sit on your program.
Well, it's an honor, and it's an honor, Your Honor. And you know, for the last backed by a quarter century of you practicing, so we have a unique opportunity to ask you about just generally about cases because you presented the evidence. You've been in front of judges, happy, sad, melancholy, whatever the judges were in what mood, they enforced the law. And with that being said, I want to focus in on some issues that are very, very important. Last we left off, we were talking about the importance of the jury pool and your service on there and the jury selection process, but also the reality of it. And it is that all of us have families in an economic crisis. We all have to work. Sometimes you don't get paid when you're on a jury panel, not by your employer, and it's very little pay but it's the best system, I think, in the world. And when we left off, I promised we'd come back. And now there are particular cases, Your Honor, that some people say, and we're talking, and this is graphic, so just, prepare for it. As far as the cases, we're talking about molestation cases of people that are accused of that, Your Honor. It seems that the media, once they get it in their hands, wrap it up for the guy who's accused of that or the lady who's accused of that, because the media almost has their own separate trial before you even hear it. And it's the truth. They make their decision up about a certain defendant, and it's hard to be innocent before proven guilty when that's going on. So I appreciate you bringing up the issue that you keep cameras out of the courtroom, particularly with children. Let's get into that. What are some of the reactions, especially, you've talked about the jury panel. You bring them in. There's 80 people, up to 80 in your courtroom. And have any of the jurors ever just said, I'm sickened by this. I'm sorry, sir. I know you're accused of something, but I can't even hear about a child being molested.
That is happening more often than not, Joe. Unfortunately, a lot of people, the lawyers will ask, anybody been molested? Anybody has had somebody in the family been molested? And you ought to see the number of hands that go up.
Oh, tragic.
Will that in itself prevent you from being fair and impartial in this case? That's the key word there. Can they be fair and impartial? And the majority of them are saying no. I don't want to sit in a case like that. Well, we don't want to take a chance on losing our right to trial by jury. If we lose that, we have nothing left in this country, because that's the only time that, like I said earlier, where you can have a billionaire sitting with a $20,000 a year person earning capacity, and they both have equal vote.
Well, I brought up that graphic example because many of us have children, and I can't even imagine the devastation of a person who has had to go through a sexual assault or whose child had to endure it, and saying, the guilt, I could have stopped it, or many times it's somebody close to the person who's been affected.
The majority of the time it is somebody that they know. It's either a grandfather, a father, an uncle, an aunt, or someone that is doing the abuse. And, they either pay the child not to say anything. Eventually it comes out. And once it does, that's why the statute is the way it is, that, you can try it after, so many years after they become majority age, because that happens a lot. And a lot of people say, well, he waited, 12 years to say anything about it. That's not the point. The point is that they try to suppress it. Mm-hmm. And once it comes out, they can't hold back. And I still attribute drugs and alcohol to a lot of these problems. I say 85% of the cases that come through our courts today, we're talking about divorces, we're talking about criminal cases, we're talking about just about any case you want to think about, is either related to drugs and or alcohol. And it's a travesty because, I mean, we're a society that used to be free of these things, but now it's eating us up. And, you know, if we don't watch what we're doing, our children will never be able to grow up and have a free society where they can be free of all these evils.
And ladies and gentlemen out there, I mean, I know it's not a it's extremely difficult for the audience out there, many of you, to hear this kind of thing, but it's the reality that's going on in the court systems. It's what lawyers and judges have to deal with, but particularly the victims. And the district attorneys who do a great job of prosecuting the cases, and the defense attorneys who represent the innocent. And oftentimes, some of these outcries are unsubstantiated to balance it out. Sometimes they are unsubstantiated where the man woman is proven innocent, but by then, because of the media frenzy and everything else, some of the damage is irreparable and everybody's harmed. So, you know, it's very powerful, very moving, you know, how you describe that to the audience. Let's turn around and say, now comes the time that you've given them the opportunity, you've brought them up to your courtroom, you've given them as fair a shake as you can, the jury's come back and spoken, that person's guilty. And the evidence proved it beyond a reasonable doubt. And many people don't understand that concept, really taking the ball down the football field goal line right there, reasonable doubt. You know, the kind of doubt, did I turn on that curling iron and you're in Hawaii? No. I think the house is on fire. You know, that doubt you get, you know, I can't explain it, but I think, you know, that doubt, you know, and they've proved it beyond that doubt, and often you have to sentence them. Let's talk about a judge having to sentence somebody, and I'm using the very, very graphic, extreme example, the one that makes everyone just universally in our country and everywhere just sicken them, the child molestation conviction. When you have to sentence them, the public's crying for you to fry them, Your Honor.
True.
You know it. I mean, if hanging was still allowed, they'd want to hang them themselves, or, you know, everybody says the same thing. So how do you handle that? Everybody's crying out for justice, and if you slap them on the hand or the wrist, then you get called on the carpet for it too. Nobody's ever going to be happy. Some people want the death sentence for something like that.
Well, the way I handle it, Joe, is that, you know, once I hear the evidence, if I'm going to be the one to sentence a person, I will go back in my chambers, and fortunately I have a beautiful view of the port out there, and I'll sit there and I'll think for a while, like, what is it that I heard? How much damage was it that it did, and what exactly am I looking at? You know, let's suppose it's a first-degree felony up to life in prison. You know, was the damage in child abuse cases are very difficult to deal with because seldom do they go to the judge for punishment, you know. But was there sufficient damage done, let's say on a burglary of a habitation?
Sure.
You know, somebody breaks into your home. People aren't there. Yes, they steal your goods. But do you send that person for the max? Were they mitigating circumstances? But you still have to be tough to the fact that, you know, we've got to curtail burglaries of a habitation. I don't want somebody, you know, coming into my house. I don't want somebody coming into your house. So what am I going to do? Are we going to house them for 20 years and give them all these liberties of they get 3 meals, they work out daily, they get to do whatever they want, they visit with their friends every day, and watch their TVs, use their phones, call home, and get their loved ones to come see them? Okay? That's the typical scenario there for a prisoner.